We are back with another episode of the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast, episode number 74. The screen's full tonight. We're doing more of a roundtable to wrap up the year. We're gonna talk a little extensively on where then and now, where on jerseys back in the old days, where on jerseys now, and how much that's changed. Part of what brought this out is My Gray's podcast, Tales from the Warehouse. Some of their guys had a discussion on this and some others, and it got us talking. It's like, you know what? Let's bring a bigger group on together and talk about that. So I'll introduce everybody real quick, then get into a few other things, and then we'll get into the discussions. Joining us tonight, who does on a more regular basis, Justin Walden, of course, Paul Rank, Wade Hampton, Jon Nakasone joins us again in Paul's room, Dan Day, Sean Sullivan, and the bulldozer, otherwise known as Matt McGonnell. So welcome, gentlemen.
Morning.
What's up,
boys?
What's up?
It's definitely going to be a fun discussion. A couple things to touch on first. We want to, as always, thank Mitch with the Drink Your Face Off lines of things. Like I said on the last show, you're not going to get it before Christmas, but he does have a lot of things up for sale. I actually met with a couple of our past guests of the show, both the Chad O'Neill, the former Blues equipment manager, that takes some skates over there. He runs Skate Tech, skate sharpening and equipment repair down in the St. Louis area. Had to get some new steel put in a pair of skates I got. So I saw him, and then also had a nice long coffee chat with the goalie gear nerd and took him one of the Drink Your Face Off pucks, and he absolutely loved it. He's his plan is to get some of those done for his goalie gear nerd stuff. So once those come out, he said he will be sending me a few. So we'll have to see about doing a giveaway or something. But it was cool catching up with him. Got some inside baseball from players and things that he'd seen on the goalie side. So I'll have to get some permission to see if I can share some of those stories because it was kind of interesting. Other pieces to touch on before we get into the topics. The drink this evening, back to the old fashions again, is Maker's Mark 101. Maker's 101. I emptied the bottle tonight for my drink because I'm trying to get some, while I'm off work, get some bottles emptied so I have spaces for new ones. So a little Maker's 101. So cheers, everybody. Before we get into the heavy discussion on where, we're also going to touch on near the end of this too, is the kind of the state of the hobby as we wrap up 2024 and get into 2025. But this will kind of lead into it. There's two different auctions, or one auction that recently closed that I'll let Paul discuss right now with the San Jose Sharks. And after that, we've got a discussion with Sean with a current auction with some time to go. Paul, tell us about the expensive jersey that the Sharks sold.
They sold a one-period wonder Celebrini jersey from the Thornton retirement game. Rumor has it was a third-period jersey, but no confirmation on that. And it was, the Sharks auction. And I've, in past shows here, I've criticized how the Sharks do their auctions. This time they actually had extended bidding on it. So if someone bid at the end, it added 1 minute to the timer. It didn't matter if the timer was at 10 seconds, it went to 1 minute and 10 seconds. If the timer was at 90 seconds, it went to 2.5 minutes. So that was actually helpful because they don't have reserve bidding at the Sharks auction. And it seems like it was a step in the right direction. The other thing they did to change things up is the bid increments switched to $50. Where in the past, the bid increments, well, when they first started the auctions, it was a penny or a fraction of a penny. And then they switched that to $1. And now as it got up, it was $50. So with all that said, the Celebrini sold for $16,100, 16100.
Wow.
They also had a Celebrini gold puck scored against the Wild. That went for $5K. And there was a Smith jersey from the game. I think do you recall what that was, John? It was.
I don't remember what it closed at, but it was a healthy number.
Yeah, I thought it was like $5K, or maybe it was more. And there was a Smith puck. Sorry, we don't have those numbers right in front of us, but But it's the stuff. The Celebrini, I was thinking it would go over 10K, more like 12 or 13. 16 did surprise me. And now they're doing yet another auction with holiday sweaters. Sharks made another video for Christmas, and now they're auctioning off the holiday sweaters worn in it by Celebrini and Smith. And I have no idea where they're at right now. I haven't looked at that in a couple of
I
days.
bet those will go for stupid money too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure someone's going to pay it. So it's I know when the card set came out um, about a month or so ago, they were giving away Young Stars cards at the Sharks games, which is basically all the rookies and younger players they have. People were selling those supposedly right away on eBay and in the Facebook groups for like $100 a pack, which
Wow.
just seemed. John's more the card expert than I am. That just seemed kind of insane because I'm guessing they probably made 10 or 20,000 of those.
Yeah, not insane. If you're not from the area and you want your hands on it, I mean, people will pay that much money for it. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they were selling fast from what I understand. I did not go to that game, and I was watching on Facebook, and people were offering them, they were selling, and people were complaining about the price he was getting.
So, and John, otherwise, if like you mentioned, people outside the area, you're having to buy random packs hoping to get those, correct? So the Sharks just put them all together in a nice, handy package.
Yeah. So another thing to remember is that Macklin Celebrini doesn't have any standard issue cards out yet, except for Team Canada. And so people are just really eager to get their hands on any of his stuff. I mean, he's driving quite a bit of hype right now, especially with the numbers he's putting up in his first 22 games. So it doesn't surprise me at all that people are opening up the wallets for this.
Is he a set 2 Young Guns guy?
Yeah, he is. Okay. Him and Will Smith are going to be set 2.
Yeah.
Series 2.
Upper Deck's really done a number on that in the card world. They did the same thing last year with the Bedard.
Yeah.
And to get, if you were a dealer or a vendor, to get into the set 2 boxes, you had to buy a certain amount of the set 1 boxes to get an allocation for set 2. So like they really, really pushed that hard to make it harder to get the superstar Bedard card. And that sounds exactly what they're doing with Celebrini this year.
Yep.
And it's funny, some of the national different hockey podcasts I listen to, and no offense, Sean, a lot of them are saying Celebrini looks actually better than Bedard. I know Bedard's having an off year, but long term, even some people are thinking Celebrini may actually outlast him. So that'll be interesting to kind of follow and see who does what where.
Thanks for driving up the prices of his next jersey with that.
Right. So speaking of Bedard, Sean, I'll let you regale us with the current Blackhawks auction.
Yeah. So last time I was on the podcast, if you recall, there was a jersey that was framed, showed no visible wear for Bedard. The first one that went to market, it went for a little over $37,000, which is pretty insane. So just now in their holiday charity auction, they've brought up a second one. This one's a white, also from the rookie year. I believe they may have read an article that somebody on this podcast wrote, who would be me, that talked a little bit about how they should have gone about things, showing wear, photo matching the jersey, tying it to certain games. And in this case, they did. There's a few visible marks on the jersey. They've photo matched it to one game and then another pregame. I don't know why he would have switched out of the pregame. Maybe he wore it for the rest of the game. I'm not sure. But I'm also not bidding because right now the bid, and I know you've got it on the screen here, Doc, is $25,300. It's marked to set 6, which I thought was interesting. Based off of what we saw as we were following the team last year, myself and a bunch of buddies have a group text. Whenever we saw a mark on a Bedard jersey, we would send texts back and forth. And with one exception, I think that the jerseys with the marks were gone the next game. So it seems as though he was wearing way more than 6 sets of jerseys. But this one is marked set 6, $25,300. It ends on the 29th. The way that the Hawks do their charity auctions is I believe it ends at the end of the second period. This one might be a little bit different because of it runs longer than their typical auctions. The typical auctions run about a day and a half and end at that second period, but it does end on the 29th for sure. So we still have a week to go. I think it'll probably go, 35 to 40 grand. We shall see. It won't be out of my checkbook. I can tell you that for sure.
And it says it's his April 18th photo match of that game, the final game of his Calder winning season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may do some few other people, and I'll pull there's one of the pictures of Ware. A few black marks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice that it's matchable, but and we'll get into the discussion in a minute of the quality of Ware. It just isn't. Let me see if I can get this one in here as well. There's the tagging that you can see 23-24-6 in the neck, and a regular set tag is down in the hem there.
Yep.
See if I can hate how this site works for zooming in on others, but on the 9 there's just like a little faint mark too. And again, we don't know how many total games he wore this. They said they photo matched it to the warm-ups for one, like you said, and one other game, maybe a few more, but
my guess is 6 is well on the low side. I'm guessing he wore one, every other game ish, by what we had seen. There's a few that have some nice, really big marks on them, but it seemed more times than not we'd see that mark in one game, the next game it's gone. So with Getty and everything.
Where are they going? Those ones where you have very clear marks, like, are they? I mean, you have to assume some to the Hall of Fame, but like,
who knows? I know the team hasn't released many of these. I think this is the third with the Rocky patch from last year that they've sold. They sold a Mrazek and a Lankinen off of their site this year, but this is only the third one with the Rocky patch that has popped up so far. So they haven't released a full set of jerseys since the 2020-2021 season. So they're basically sitting on 3 sets of jerseys the last 3 years. When they pop up is anybody's guess. So they've been trickling them out every so often through their in-game auctions. It's averaged 1 a month maybe during the season. So there hasn't been very many.
Hey, real quick, Sean, what do you think that does to the overall value of the jerseys when real collectors know that they have that many of them in tow? I mean, in my opinion, it sounds like that would really hurt the overall value of them.
Well, the thing is, so like, if you look back at 21-22, name me, besides Kane and Taves, name me and Duncan Keith, name me 3 other Hawks that were on that team. Yeah. I'm a huge Hawks fan. I could barely name 3 guys off that team. So I think they've really shot themselves in the foot in that there's no demand for these guys anymore. I mean, they had the Tony Esposito patch, the 35 patch. So those jerseys will be in demand because of the patch. But even from 2 seasons ago, there's hardly, besides Connor Murphy, there's not many players that are still on the team from 2 years ago. Yeah. So, I think they've missed the whole striking while the iron's hot thing, because nobody cares about, your Lucas Walmart jerseys and those types of guys. Pius Suter, he's now on Vancouver, so maybe a Vancouver fan would like that, but there's just not going to be a lot of demand for the guys that have gone. On the more recent stuff, these Rocky patch jerseys, the Mrazek and the Lankinen went for pretty decent coin. And I think, it's a combination of the goalie plus the Rocky patch, because those are the first ones that came out. We'll see what happens with the rest of them. I'm hopeful that they're going to do a big drop at some point, like the Blues have done and other teams in the past, but it's really a roll of the dice at this point. We're not sure.
Watch, they'll drop all the Bedard jerseys at once at $30,000 a piece. Just here you go.
Nothing would surprise me at this point. So
with the lack of wear, or the so basic wear that the Bedard jersey has, again, he's wearing one every 10 minutes, it seems. I want to discuss what wear used to be and what wear is now, and like the term hammered, how much that term has changed from the older school stuff to now. I'll kind of start with Paul and John, since you guys are both in the same room. How, and Paul, you've got your hands on Detroit Red Wings and San Jose a lot. How much have you seen wear change in modern day stuff compared to the older things we used to get?
I'll start with the Red Wings on that. For a number of years, they only wore one set, and a lot of those were truly hammered. You'd get some jerseys like Danny Cleary or Brad Stewart, which would have 60, 70, 80 repairs on the sleeves. It'd literally just be a cluster of repairs. The last 6, 7 years have switched to two sets of jerseys a year, but which is still a lot less than a lot of teams. So you are getting some jerseys with decent repairs, which is nice, but you're not getting, in general, the grime and the filth that you used to get, like the stick marks across the front, which it seemed like a lot of players, you always had the black marks on the older jerseys. But for wear with the Red Wings, most of the stuff I pick up, I'm so happy with. But that's always one of my questions: is what do the sleeves look like? How many repairs, and purchasing them remotely. I always appreciate the photos on that. As for the Sharks, they seem to wear quite a few sets, 3 or 4 a year. They have a third jersey, which also then adds into it. There are still a few players which they do get decent wear on the sleeves and stuff, but I don't know the right words for it. It's not the same as what it was like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Clearly, when it seemed like some of the jerseys, they were just trying to salvage them to have something to wear. Whereas, now if you get blood on a jersey, it gets taken behind and supposedly, cleaned up, and they're wearing something else. I can't remember one game. Some player had to switch numbers because of blood on his jersey. I think that was a college game, though. But John, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many thoughts on this, and Paul and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we saw each other, and there's definitely a lot more wear. My measuring stick is 25 years ago, at the height of the whole GameWorn.net days, when wear was everything. And of course there were plenty of jerseys that didn't have wear, but I think a couple things happened. I think the popularity of the hobby has gotten to the point where teams didn't care about jerseys as marketable items the way they do today. So the jerseys were literally looked at as things to be repaired, reused, recycled. Whereas now, I mean, it's very much tailored to the fan who's not necessarily a game-worn jersey collector, which we all are, right? It's not just about the player, it's not just about the team, it's about the imprint the game leaves on the jersey. Today, it's much more about appealing to the person who, hey, this was, your favorite player worn this. It's right off their back. And so the importance of wear starts to become diminished a little bit to that particular audience. 25 years ago, I would have an easier time saying there's basically one type of jersey collector, and it was, what I spoke about earlier. Today, I think there's a broader spectrum, which has led to this door opening of these, quote unquote clean jerseys, which definitely do not appeal to us, but certainly appeal to other people because people are buying them. So,
no, and that makes a lot of sense. And part of it is too, as we've heard through different sources over the years, once the NHL got into high def television and that too, they also wanted the jerseys, especially the white ones, to look clean and not beat up and not look, for lack of a better word, unprofessional. Makes the teams look like, oh, why are they wearing dirty jerseys? Because a lot of the fans understand it, but a lot of other people that might turn on TV may not get that. Sean.
Yeah, first off, Wade, your dog is cracking me up. That's awesome.
And it's a cute dog too.
I had a puppy attack. I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to mention. So I collect from all eras. I just do Blackhawks for the most part, but I go way back with shirts. I've got shirts from the 50s, 60s, 70s, that type of thing, and I totally agree that the older jerseys have more wear. Hawks 2 wore one set up until the early 90s, actually. Um, but it really, I think, depends too on the material that the jerseys are made of, and kind of the era of play. So I've got some nice jerseys from the 60s, from the 70s, that they're made of During, which was much more durable than like the ultra fills and the air knits of the 80s, 90s, and going forward. And I've got a few shirts, and I've seen a bunch of shirts from certain sets from the Hawks of During material that it was almost like steel. You could, guys have 50, 60 board burns all over the sleeves, but there's not a repair on the shirt. My favorite one that I point to is I've seen the Dennis Savard reverse tomahawk jerseys, which was worn in the 80s. It's an ultra fill jersey, and most guys have repairs all over their shirts. Savard wore the same jersey the entire regular season, photo matched from the first game through the last game of the regular season. There's not one repair on that jersey. So it really depends, I think, a lot on the jersey material. And ultra fill usually, there's way more repairs in an ultra fill jersey than a During. So it's you just need to be careful a little bit with overgeneralizing. So the older During jerseys, I think, held up very well to wear. So they wouldn't show as much as, say, the ultra fills of the 80s and the air knits of the 90s. So you can't overgeneralize, but I have ultra fill and air net jerseys from the 80s and early 90s with upwards of over 100 repairs. So those were definitely the glory days for sure.
No, and you're right. Is that we've seen those materials changed, and then we saw Reebok with the Edge stuff, and a lot of talk in the hobby of, ooh, what's this going to be? And then with Fanatics, and ooh, what's that going to be? How is that going to wear different? And now with the Fanatics change too, and I think I mentioned the last podcast, the one gentleman got the white Kraken, said it seemed to be about the same amount of wear, one for the player and two compared to Adidas, about leveled out. But at this point, we still don't have a lot of good, solid evidence of what those Fanatics jerseys are wearing like. Justin, I'll go to you.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see, especially for someone who doesn't collect a lot of the 70s and 80s, just how much, even in a short time that I've been collecting, it's changed. And going after college, one certain college team, even that organization's approach is evolved over the last, I'd say, 10 years as well. So you are seeing it even within a smaller time frame, just different attitudes about it. And it gets harder and harder to photo match, obviously. And there are certain programs that they're always going to remain popular no matter the wear. But for those individuals who do really prioritize the wear, it certainly makes for a shifting hobby. And for me, it's less of a concern as long as I can get my hands on the program team. But other than that, it really is. I do think it's based on individuals' interests.
Nope, totally makes sense. Dan.
I think that the TV is the biggest deal with it. I think there's too much money with the TV. I think the jersey materials changed over the years. I also think the game is different than it was played in, say, the 90s. So I don't think there's as much bang and hitting as it was before when they go back. Players wear more jerseys, not just the team wearing 2 or 3 sets, but you throw in the third jersey, the specialty jersey. Certain players wear multiple jerseys per game because they like it. So I think that takes a lot away from the potential wear of what we have on the jerseys, and that's why it goes down much. I think the biggest thing is the TV. I think the TV deal is what they want. They want to look professional on the game, so they wash them more, they take more stuff out, and they change them more.
Matt.
Even jerseys are showing. It feels like even goalie jerseys are, for starters, you're just seeing less and less wear, even on a starter who gets a majority of their games. it surprises me how some of these materials are still holding up even over 20, 30 games across the season.
Well, and some funny thing too is pay attention to stats through some of the podcast stuff I listen to, and the goals scored is up, so they're shooting at the goalie more often, so those should be beat up pretty decent. But yeah, even some of the star goalies, you look at when their jerseys come up for sale, it's like there seems like there should be a lot more wear there, and there isn't. Matt, your thoughts?
I'm a little parched. Give me 1 second. I got a drink.
Nope, you're good. As you're raising the Stanley Cup, I'd love
it. Now. All right, I was waiting to throw that in there for fun.
I love that.
First of all, I think everyone's hit a good a point with the game has changed. I mean, let's face it. Like when the lockout happened, now you get your stick parallel to the ice. There's a penalty being called. There's no more. I shouldn't say no more. There is a drastic reduction in marks on the jerseys, both because of the cleaning and players are afraid to get a penalty. Nobody wants to be the reason their team is on the PK, and so much more ticky-tack. I think penalties are being called now that, let's face it, like I said, the game has changed. And I hate to say it, but the fabric is really important. Everyone bragged about how great the edge was going to be, and it was okay. I think one of the biggest problems that I have now in the hobby, and I'm very passionate about it, is can we get better descriptive words? I see people listing jerseys, and it's like sweet, nice, good wear, killer wear, and it's almost to go off of the hammered comment that we had previously. Like what is that? Like what is sweet repair? What is nice repair? It's all subjective. Like, can't you say like, oh, I got 3 repairs here or whatnot? And again, I'm not trying to go after anyone in particular, but I think as a hobby, we should come to some conclusion of using better adjectives to describe the wear.
And I don't disagree with that, and part of it is all of us have been in the hobby at least to some time to look at the older things when hammered meant this thing was beat to hell, and you can almost have to stop counting repairs because you can't count that high and different things. But now you have the modern collector that may not understand or may think to them, and again, not knocking more modern collectors, it's just as more people get in, is they see 5, 6, 7 puck marks, stick marks, whatever, and 1 or 2 repairs, and to them that's hammered. And I say, for anybody that's not heard it, is go listen to My Gray's podcast on this as well, because they get into that and talk to some of the terms and that's why we're doing this one. Paul.
Yeah, the term, it really doesn't, I don't care what you call it, hammered, great wear, whatever. Everything's in the details. And if you have a nice description, as Matt was alluding to, 3 repairs on the left arm, 8 repairs on the right arm, black stick marks on wherever, kind of like the old Doug Reisinger LOAs, where he would handwrite out every detail about that jersey that you can see. That's what really matters when you're looking to buy or trade for a jersey, or just wonder if it is the jersey you're looking for because you cared about a game during that period, and match to it. So I'm not as worried about the nomenclature we decide to call these things, but I would like to see better descriptions and stuff, especially when you're shopping for something.
No, completely agree, Sean.
Yeah, if you guys remember Ken Mace, rest his soul, who passed years ago, he used to have a scale on his site where he would rank jerseys by wear, and it was, I think one fist if it was light wear, 2 fists if it was heavy wear, and he had little definitions on all of those. So it was 5 repairs, 10 repairs, 15 repairs, and hammered was the top one. So I think there have been attempts in the past to try to rank things, but it's really tough because if you just concentrate on repairs, you're missing, all the marks and everything else that could happen on a jersey. So I think it's really subjective. Again, era appropriate. Today, if I see a Connor Bedard jersey with two marks on it, no way am I going to say that's hammered. If that Connor Bedard jersey had 5 repairs for today's wear, that's decent. If it had a dozen or 20 repairs, then it's hammered. It really depends on the overall wear on the jersey, not just the repairs. And I think sometimes people, at least back in the old days, they used to get stuck, and I used to be one of those guys where we get stuck on the repairs. So if it had, marks all over the place, the thing is just black with wear, general filth, if you guys remember that term. If it's just black with stick marks and wear, but it doesn't have any repairs, old Sean would say, well, I'm really not interested. I want a jersey with repairs all over the place. But I've evolved, and I think other people have as well, especially because nowadays so many jerseys. I mean, you'll see some sets. I think the Predators on occasion have come out with sets of jerseys that have like 20, 30, 40 repairs. A couple other teams here or there, but teams like the Hawks, they if you get more than 3 or 4 repairs, you're doing really well. So.
No, and you're right. It's always going to be subjective and even team to team. But I think both you and Paul hit it on the head too. Is regardless of what terms, especially if you're just posting it to share, the pictures you can only see so much, or you can zoom in. But say, hey, oh yeah, I got this jersey. It's got these many repairs all over, and that, because we all as collectors want to hear about that stuff and see, okay, this team is really getting their jerseys hammered, or this player's getting their jerseys hammered, because then we might want to collect that team or that player. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Wade.
I think that wear has changed substantially over the years. I think the one thing that we haven't really discussed is the fact that material has also changed, in the sense that obviously a lot more technology goes into the weave and the way that they're building the jerseys and what they make of them. Obviously, that old stuff, those Dreams were fantastic, but it's changed a lot. The general filth thing, I'm not the guy to say for sure, but it almost seems like the stuff that they're using on the sticks maybe doesn't leave the same black marks and everything on the jerseys like the stuff in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s did. So I think that's changed. I think obviously I agree with Matt substantially that people need to do a better job of describing stuff when they go to sell it. There's nothing worse than light but noticeable wear is, I think, my favorite term that wasn't said yet, but that's my favorite. And that is, I use it whenever I describe things, unfortunately, because it is a real term, but it does suck. So yeah, the stuff has definitely changed. I think we've discovered that as stuff has evolved, I think our understanding of what good wear is versus that is changed substantially, because you're rarely going to find a jersey that you're going to look at like something from back in the day, 25 plus years ago. At our expo, that guy walked in with the Dwight Schofield Gamer from 84, 85, and it like literally had repairs from top to bottom. I mean, you're just not going to see that anymore. And that has a lot to do with the visual details of the game changing, in the sense that we have high definition TVs. These guys are more in your face. The visuals are a lot more impressive. So obviously the NHL wants those guys to be in clean, good looking jerseys night in and night out.
And you're absolutely right with that. And I mean, looking at some of the ones that we had at your expo and some of the pictures I've seen from others, and Sean touched on it, is through the middle of the jersey, especially the lower hems, and that is the amount of black marks you'd see through there is stick marks, things like that. And you're right, is players aren't doing that kind of hooking that they used to be able to get away with, and the tape material, I think, has changed some, and that, so it just doesn't leave. But people aren't touching the players like they used to. Is a lot of the burns you see on the arm, or is that they're playing up against the boards, things like that. And you can sometimes tell if the guy's left or right-handed by where those burns or repairs and things are, because I've had some where one arm is demolished and the other one doesn't have a mark on it, but it's how they go into the boards and how they play. Matt.
I was going to say that I think that the general filth term is almost non-existent in today's hobby because we just don't see that, like we've all discussed. We just don't see the wear there. The fabrics change, the hooking, the slashing is just not there. And in place of it, we've come up with this new fabric back tape, and I hate it. I'd rather see that beautiful repair work. I don't care. Again, you look at that, almost brings a tear to your eye because you're like, oh, this is great. Be able to match it. Now, this fabric back tape, it kind of takes away from it. I mean, you still have the repair there, but it's a whole different category. And then going into uniqueness to players, you have some players that just you might like them as a player, but they don't get wear on their jerseys. Like take for example Matt Duchene. I like him as a player, but if he has got five repairs on a jersey, you've got an all-star hammered quote jersey, but you just don't see the repairs on certain players. And then other players, you look at Alex Carrier on Nashville or Dante Fabro, who's now on Columbus. That guy steps on the ice and he's got 2 repairs free of charge.
No, and I think you're right to that is the game overall has changed, and you continue to see that because I think some of the all-star guys, the high level players, especially younger ones that are the young guns, as it were, are flashy and fast, and that's the game, but they're not getting hooked. They're not going into the corners hard to get some of those kind of things. Sean.
So one other thing I've heard brought up previously elsewhere is white stick tape. So everybody used to use black tape and would leave nice marks when you were getting hooked or just rubbing it against your belly as you're waiting for a face off, that type of thing. With white stick tape now, there's nothing that comes off. There's no residue, so you don't get those nice marks beyond just the whole rule changes and not as much hooking, that type of thing.
No, and you're right. Is people have switched around. It's the new player preference with that, and people aren't touching it. But if it's white, it's not going to show up anyway. So and again, we've already touched heavy on definitions. What are some ones that I guess we should, going into 2025, maybe we should redefine? Wade, I'll start with you.
Things we should redefine, I think, is the way we describe jerseys. I think that's a big one. I talked to Matt and Dan quite a bit about different things, and that's something that I think all of us look into. I think going into 2025, I'd like to see some more consistency in the way we see things priced, if that makes any sense. It's hard for me to understand. A lot of times when you see auction prices and then secondarily market prices, in the sense that like you'll see somebody bid in an auction and something goes for X, and then a private collector will try to list it and sell it at Y, and they can't even get a sniff on it, which I think that's just odd to me. That's like, I watch, like, especially I'm a blues collector, so I watch the blues auctions, and I watch third and fourth line guys go for $500 and up, and then I see people trying to sell them 6 months or a year later, and you can't get $350 for that same jersey or $400, and nobody's even sniffing at it. So to me, it's just an oddity. I think that has to do a lot with that fan collector versus the hobbyist collector. It's odd to me.
No, and those are good things to take in next year. Paul and John.
You want to start or?
I don't have anything. Go ahead.
I'll mention on redefining terms. I would love to see some clarification on game worn, game used, game issued, team issued. We had to deal with it in one of the groups earlier today. Wow, it's been a long day. A game issued jersey is different than team stock or something. Just because you get a jersey, which is made by Adidas or now Fanatics, God forbid, and then you bring it to EPS and get it customized to spec, it's not game issued. It's and we see a lot of that in the groups, and we've tried to crack down on it in the main group. And we've, some people have been kicked out, others have had post approval turn on, but it would be really good to get a little bit standardization on those terms. And especially to me, the difference between game issued and team stock versus customized.
A game issued jersey, in my opinion, is a jersey that has a set stamp in it or is prepared for the ice by the team and was set to be used. A team issued jersey then is a jersey that you bought from the team, and then an authentic jersey is just something. If you get a jersey that's unstitched and you add all the stuff to it, that has nothing to do with the team.
So you're saying the difference between game issued and team issued is the set stamp and then tag?
I think not. It depends. It's the destination. What was the destination for the jersey? A game issued jersey is a jersey that was designated to be used in a game. Typically, those would have a set stamp or would have been set up for use in a game. Whereas a team issued jersey, the team owned it. Who cares if it wasn't designated for use? That's not a game. That's not a game issued jersey or whatever. It's a team owned jersey.
And in that case, you're saying for a blank, it has not been lettered yet at that point.
Yeah, calling that game issued or even team issued is bullshit, because at the end of the day, you made it team. You made it. It's a custom jersey. It's not a team issued jersey. It wasn't prepared by the customizer for the team in preparation to be set stamped and used.
I 100% agree, and I really dislike the term team issued. I kind of consider team issued and game issued almost the same. I would prefer the term for what we're talking about here: team stock, customized.
Yeah.
It's
an authentic jersey.
Two problems. One is it's a good problem to have in terms of diversity of the hobby. We have a lot of different collectors coming in, and we can be cranky about all we want, but certainly the more we have in the hobby, that's a good thing, but that's going to change the way we talk. But two, teams don't even know what to call some of this stuff. And that's the problem is we're debating this amongst ourselves, but we have the recent Team USA jerseys from their recent auction. They were calling stuff game issue or game worn. That really is it truly game worn, or is it somewhere in one of these gray areas that we're talking about? So I think programs and teams don't even know what to call this stuff, and that gets hard. And you have certain organizations that will mark, obviously, in pen on the set tags if it was game issued or game used, and just between the number of leagues, number of sets, number of different teams, it's hard for us to be standardized in our language, and yet the organizations don't even know.
I recently acquired a jersey that was sold by the team through one of their outlets, and it is not set stamped. It is no signs of use or wear. My guess is it was probably a community relation jersey. However, I can't really prove that. So that's a jersey to me that I look at it more as an authentic than I do like a game worn or game issued or game used, because it's not cut in the shoulder for the tag. It wasn't ever designated to be used in a game. So to me, my best guess from my best educated guess, I guess, is that it's probably a community relations jersey. However, if I sold it in the future and it ever left my collection, I would sell it as and I would call that a team issued jersey because it did come from the team, but I would say it's a team issued authentic jersey.
And I've got some, and I think you have some of the other ones of again, from the Blues where they wore the preseason ones, and we've talked about this a few other times, the switching from prime green or from the non-prime green to prime green, they blew out a bunch in preseason. No set tags. The spot for the tracking tag was cut and is open. Some of them were sold at the arena to buy. They've got wear to them. A few of them ended up going to, like you mentioned, community relations jerseys. The fight strap is marked CR, so they, I don't know, hang them or whatever the hell they do, why it's marked that, but it has obvious wear to them. I have 5 jerseys, 2 of which are marked CR, but both have, for preseason, decent wear. A handful of burns and other stuff to them. So it again, it still gets in the gray area because we don't always know what the hell teams are doing.
And that's where doing your homework matters. On those, I mean, those are clearly preseason worn jerseys. You can tell, like, again, you got to let the jersey speak for itself in the sense that it has the cut for the tag, which obviously somebody could do that on their own. But the game use and whatever, and then knowing the history of what they did that preseason. And that's where this one that I have gets to be a little bit of a dilemma, is the fact that, to me, I almost own it as an authentic more than I do consider it anything beyond that.
Right.
John, have you got anything?
No, I don't. I think those are great points.
Man of not of few words, but great points nonetheless. Sean.
Dan.
So I could there's maybe nothing I could be interested less in than game issued jerseys. So I'm probably not the right person to ask about this. If it wasn't game worn, if I can't, match it, that type of thing, I'm just not interested. So that's, call them whatever you want to call them. I call them something I'm not even considering. So that's my opinion on that.
So let me ask you this question really quick before we go on to Matt. Let's take Connor Bedard, for example. Mm-hmm. He gets injured tomorrow and is done the rest of the year. There is, call it 2, 3, 4, maybe 1 jerseys out there that were prepped for him to wear this season. If they were to put that out as a game issued Bedard, would you touch that?
There'd probably be about 48 of them at this point. I think you're underestimating, but no, I wouldn't have any interest at all, because to me it's something I can go down to, the team store, get one of the authentics now, even though the number is a little different, and get it numbered up, and that's the same type of deal for me. So I mean, if something, God forbid, happens, he doesn't play in the Winter Classic, those are going to be game issue jerseys. I'm sure they're going to be crazy money, even if he doesn't play. Hopefully he does. But I would have zero interest in those. Just
interesting. And I know some people, because it's such a star player, because I mean, you see Lemieux issued ones or Yager issued ones for later in his career, and people want to get them because of who it was made for.
Oh yeah. And I totally get it.
Fourth liner.
Yeah, I totally get it, and for a lot of collectors, that's their niche or their way to get something that belonged to that player. But I'd rather, and maybe I will, maybe I won't eventually get a Bedard jersey. I'm not paying 40 or 50 grand for one, that's for sure. But I'll just wait it out. I mean, I've again, and I know John and Paul have been in this hobby a long time, and several other guys on the call as well. If you just wait, I mean, striking while the iron is hot is one thing, but as well, guys that are going to be on the team for many years, supply and demand will eventually even out, and things will come down. And I'm totally fine with a 6th-year Bedard jersey. I don't need a 1st-year Bedard jersey for sure.
I get it, Matt.
I'm with Sean on the whole subject of. I almost think we should rusticate or remove anything that isn't game used from our little groups and leave it at that, because let's face it, you get a team issued and somebody tries to pass it off as game issued. It may not even go to the proper person that did the customization of the name and numbers on the back. And 2 other things I thought of. Well, actually 3. What would you guys? We'll ask this one last. Hold on. Let me put that one to the side. First of all, showing off your jerseys. Like if you want to, either you're showing them on a mail day or you're trying to sell something. I think we should have like some kind of standardization of show the jersey. Don't roll it up so I see the name bar. Put the year. You don't have to like list the 1 inch off this elbow is a repair, but some kind of sharing of it, not just throwing a jersey out there and saying, hey, come buy it. It's $19.95 plus shipping, friends and family. And I think that needs to change, because a lot of jerseys are being missed or opportunities lost to make more money and not saying gouge somebody, but you're selling yourself when you sell these jerseys in a way. And if you put a nice description out there, I think it helps. Or if you want to share your collection, and that's what we all want to do. We want to learn. We want to see what's out there. But my really tricky question is, some of us may not remember these, but the custom crafted specials, they fall into a really unique category because I have seen a Peter Stastny Devils jersey that custom crafted, for those that don't know, made jerseys up incorrect size wise and sent them out to the team. And say Peter Stastny is a 52, that he sent him a 48 or 50. And he's like, I can't wear this shit. But they're like, oh, wear it for a game and we'll reissue one later. And then Custom Crafted would take that jersey back. They'd make some kind of repair marks on it. And there would actually sometimes be game wear on it. So where does that fall in? That is a really unique situation. And I know there's jerseys that probably still float around out there that fall into that.
No, and you're right. We've covered that a few different times.
Oh, I apologize.
No, you're good. But that's something that needs to continue to come up because they get lost to history. And then they may show up as oh, this is a game jersey and I got it in an estate sale or whatever. And the history for it was lost. Let's go. We'll go around here and then touch back on your stuff here, your other stuff here in a minute, Matt. Over to you, Dan.
We've got a lot to say. I think we had a previous show a while ago about tiering of jerseys, game issued, game worn, team issued, and how you rank them as far as pricing. I think they all have a place in the hobby for certain people. I'm not a big game issue collector. I have one, and it means something to me because of the player it is, and I got it signed and everything, and he gave my son a puck and all that. So I think there is a place for it, but I agree that it should be correctly identified with it. And I think we have an issue in the hobby because I got taken, was it last year, where a guy said it was game worn, had marks on it, but then it was stamped, game issued, and you couldn't prove it was game worn with the marks on it, and he didn't want to take the money back and all that stuff. So I think where there's money in the hobby, there's always a chance of people scamming us or trying to scam. So I think there's a place that makes it we all try to get as close to game worn, provable game worn jerseys we can. Sometimes teams make up a jersey for the player. The player doesn't wear it, and it doesn't get set stamped or anything like that, and then it gets sold at an equipment sale. I've seen that before, where it was made by the team for the team, but they just didn't use it, so they threw it in the equipment sale. So I think there's some things that we could. It's going to be hard to clean stuff up in the hobby because how to get everybody on the same page is difficult. But I think descriptions when you list a jersey, some of the adjectives that we use are like advertising, advertising. They're bland. My definition of good wear or heavy wear is different than somebody else's. So I would like to see it more simplified. Shows game use. It shows use consistent with the player. Some players don't have a lot of game use. Like Bernard, like you guys have said, Bernard doesn't have a lot of game use. Well, a lot of players don't have it, but some players are known to get more game use on their jerseys. And then I'd like to see, I guess, the pricing. It seems the pricing's gotten out of control, and no one justifies how a jersey climbed in value per se. So I think we got some. It's going to be difficult, but it's always a pipe dream, I guess.
No, and some of this stuff we've seen for years, and you mentioned the again, marks on a jersey couldn't quite prove it was game worn. We've seen both sides of it. Even My Gray, and we've seen posts about it. My Gray sells a jersey is issued. Well, when the person gets it, there's some wear to it. They do research, find, oh yeah, the guy wore it for half a game because he was injured or whatever. They re-edit or redo send it back to them. They have redone LOAs, COAs over it. When the Rangers dumped all their stuff on Pro Stock Hockey, all the set stamps, there was one set stamp inside of it that says game issued, and some of them had a second regular game set stamp. A bunch of them had wear to them, even though it said issued. Some teams just use that term issued, regardless if it's worn or not. That's their, because it was issued to the player, and we've seen this over the years, and Wade probably has some examples, I do as well, as the Blues LOAs say issued to player, blah, 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 and there's wear all over it. They just use that word because they didn't have a better one. Worn wasn't necessarily, they just wanted to stick with issued, and we've seen that on a regular basis. Sean.
Yeah, I had to put that on my website because that came up time and time again where people would say, but the letter says that it's issued. And the Blackhawks just like would issue letters that say this jersey was issued to Jeremy Roenick for the 90-91 season, and the jersey's got 100 repairs on it, but the letter says it's issued. And so I felt like I needed to put that on the website because that's just the terminology that they used. They just said that, okay, this was the jersey that we gave this player to wear for the year. That terminology meant nothing, and they used it for probably 10-15 years before they finally changed the wording on it. They didn't care. That's what the words that they used, Yeah,
the Blackhawks couldn't afford a thesaurus. So and finally, Justin, with you on this.
No, I mean, I think we've all covered a lot of good ground. I think, as we manage the influx of, I don't want to call everyone collectors because there's just a lot of people looking for lottery tickets. Regardless of the new collectors' intentions, I do think some of us as veterans, and been collecting for a decade, not nearly as much as some of you guys on the call, but I think it's incumbent upon us, regardless of the terminology, to educate, continue to educate those who are coming in, both for financial purposes to not get screwed, but also because this is a hobby. And so some of the frustration, and I was active on one of the ice jersey forum for a long time for Authentics, and that group had a little bit of a gatekeeping dynamic to it. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us, those of us who've been collecting for a while and who know better, to just not be, to be accessible and to not be arrogant or condescending with new collectors, because you legitimately see, and it's always heartbreaking to see some of these people who just literally don't know what they're talking about and to get piled on with the laughing emojis and all that. So I think it's just passing down knowledge, terminology, and approaches to verifying this stuff. I think in a responsible and frankly a more collegial way than I see in the hobby on a day-to-day basis.
Good thoughts, Dan.
Yeah, I like, we keep saying about the new collector, but as the hobby changes, as there's more jerseys come out, older collectors need to keep up with times. Older guys that have been around a long time tend to get stuck in their ways, and they're not updating with today's jerseys and living in the past. So yes, the new guy comes in, you're like, you want to tell him like, hey, okay, this is what the team does or what it does, but things change and people need to roll with some of the stuff that's changing, that we happen. We're multiple sets. Most of the teams that sells their jerseys, that's an entry-level job. There's very few teams that have experienced people selling jerseys. So when they issue, like Sean said, when they issue a game issue jersey, they're just writing a letter. Okay, that's what the wording they used. Other people might say, oh, that's a bad saying because it was worn. So I think there's a lot more into it than just saying we got to educate the younger collector. Everybody's got to keep rolling with it and keep trying to keep up with what's going on, because as more teams are taking their jerseys back, we're going to see more issues with letters, with LOAs, with COAs, with how many sets they're wearing, with all the stuff that bothers all of us when it comes to a jersey.
No, you're right. Is all of us need to adapt. Matt.
First of all, Dan Day. I didn't know we had the Edge from YouTube coming on the show to talk about wear. Am I right? Does he not look like the Edge?
Just put a beanie on, bro.
Look at that guy.
Who's the Edge?
Where's Bonner? But anyway, I thought of something else that I was curious what everyone, since we're in this somewhat new era where has become less or not as prevalent, do you think a premium should be placed on jerseys with wear? I know not everyone collects wear or cares about it, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone that we know that collects is going to go, "Oh no, I couldn't own that jersey. It has too much wear for me. I can't handle that. I'm not man or woman enough to handle that much wear on a jersey." I'd love to hear thoughts.
Paul.
So, Mitch has actually had a jersey returned to him because it had too much wear. It was an older Sharks, Jeff
You
Norton.
stand corrected.
I'm sorry.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always going to be Mitch. You know it. But it was a Jeff Norton, older Sharks, where it's just ton of repairs up around the shoulders, and it's a beautiful jersey. It's I was surprised someone would not want it for that reason.
What was their reasoning for that, Paul?
It was too. My understanding from Mitch is that there was too much wear on it, and it was too destroyed. Now, I could understand older, like wool jerseys, which are falling apart, or the Nordiques, or the Blues, where they're flaking and stuff, where you don't want one of those because you're afraid it's going to fall apart more.
Sure,
But
yeah,
so-
completely
something like in that
understandable.
case, the wear was done. So I found it as an interesting case in that, and leave it to Mitch to find that one person.
Right, yeah. Mitch seems to get all that. And I'm going to make a couple comments here, and then we'll do one final question before we wrap this up. I want to say a couple things, is one of which, and I should have shared it out earlier when we were doing other topics. I want to thank Garrett. He sent me a message the other day with, and we'll cover it on one of the future shows just to show it off, sent me the videos of I mentioned Boston's Centennial box where it has the video screen. He sent me videos of all of that, and it is cool as hell. So I want to thank Garrett for sending that to me on Friday. And we'll share that in a future thing for anybody that's not seen it. The other thing I want to mention, and we've again covered that in past shows with Wade, myself, Paul, Justin. I think even the other Sean has helped us out, and actually I think all of us on this podcast have contributed. Is the tag tracking on the new Fanatics jerseys, and we talk about game issued, team stock, things like that. With the new Fanatics jerseys and being able to buy those authentic pros that are identical, quote unquote, to the game jerseys that everybody's wearing on the ice right now. The good thing is if people are buying those authentics and getting them lettered, they are going to have a very difficult time passing them off as game issued because that tag inside coating is different. I had a white Sabres jersey I sent out to our group messages today of both the home and the road game worn Vegas jerseys. So we're continuing to build that database, but that in its, we talk about being concerned with people trying to pass some of these off down the road where there'll still be team stock Fanatics game jerseys. Yes, there will, but at least for the short term, I think we've Fanatics, this is at least a good thing, and I know, Paul, it's hard for you to hear this. Fanatics at least did a good thing with tagging those with a different code than what the game jerseys are. And that in itself, if somebody tries to pass those off, that is at least helpful in being able to separate those two. Sean.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. You guys are doing God's work there, because I know at least in Blackhawks land from the 1998 or 96 to 98, 99 season, Hawks wore Nike jerseys, and you could buy authentics in the store that were the exact same as the stuff they wore on the ice. There were examples where tagging was a little bit different in the store, but then I could find photo match jerseys that were also worn on the ice with that same tagging. So I think being able to differentiate at all with these is phenomenal. So I really commend you guys on doing all that work. I'm happy to contribute, and I'm working on getting the Winter Classics, so we can get some some codes confirmed for those as well. So,
and we appreciate everybody that, not just people on this podcast today that's helped with that. Is we're constantly each of us are getting messages. Hey, here's this tag. This we appreciate that, because eventually we'd love to have every team, their alternates, the whole bit, so we can look at the coding and look at all that stuff, and it is extremely helpful. Paul.
So I do agree it is a good thing that those guys at Fanatics have done. But it is a short, very little tag in there with a small number. And right now we have one set of them for the first part of 2024. We don't know how often those numbers are going to change. And when we get 2-3 years down the road, there might be dozens of different numbers to look at that. And obviously right now we haven't memorized what the game worn team worn jerseys are numbered, but we really do need to get this further out, documented, put up on Opert or somewhere else, I don't care, where we can look at this in 2-3 years when a jersey comes out without any wear, properly, done up by EPS or someone, and without a set tag. And it might be a team that doesn't use set tags. I don't know if they still exist, at least in the NHL. And we have to find, it's going to be more difficult to check at those times. You're at an expo, a jersey of a player you really want comes along, and it might be hard to tell. So we're in the right direction, but we got to make sure this information really gets out there. It's well known and easy to find and to check things.
No, and you're right. And I'm hoping that I think it's the middle code. I've looked at them enough that I don't remember which one. The one code I'm hoping sticks, and just the date above it, the manufacturing date or whatever changes. So that code is that team's jersey going forward. If they add a third, the code's a little different, whatever. But it's steady across multiple years. We can hope for that. But no, Paul, you're absolutely right. We need several years of evidence of what this is going to do.
And one thing we could do is look at past years' Fanatics jerseys, the retail authentics or whatever they were putting out, and see what sort of coding they have on that, and if they've been changing that from year to year.
Yeah, no, good thought. So the final piece of this, kind of a two-part question, we'll go around everybody and then wrap this up, is the two-part question is now we're coming up on halfway through the NHL season, and of course coming into 2025. Question one is, now that we've had almost a half season, what do you think about the Fanatics jerseys on ice, things like that? And then what do you hope for into 2025 with collecting and things such as that? Justin, I'll start with you.
Not really. After many NHL teams just continue to pop up.
Jets.
Jets aside, I think I'm at the point where I am grail hunting and kind of trying to run out some of the gaps in my Binghamton collection. I know that there are some pieces both in and out of the hobby that are out there. So I think it's just, doing a little bit less this coming year in terms of number of packages arriving at the place, and just trying to track down a couple of the higher end Binghamton AHL stuff that I've been after for this year. So that's going to be my resolution for the coming calendar year.
Not a bad one at all. And I know a lot of people have kind of gotten away from current stuff and trying to find, like you said, higher end or particular player, whatever it is. And that's always a fun challenge because you don't know when or where they'll pop up. Dan.
Yeah, but I don't know, somewhere about halfway through the year, maybe in the spring, I started to refocus some stuff and started to say, okay, what do I want to collect, and not worry about anything else down the road, like any trades or deals or anything like that. Just worry about what makes me happy, and then just be able to show it off down the road and let it ride for what it rides, So continue the hunt to make that as the best I can. Enjoy what other people post and share. And I would hope that, I guess, as a hobby, I would not everybody can make it to expos, so I would hope that people would do more um, initiative to create something to share their collection, whether that be Flickr, a website, Instagram, whatever they do. There's a lot of great jerseys out there, and I wish that people would share them more instead of just sitting in their house and not sharing them with anybody. To be so, I wish people would do that more.
I like that is yeah, so many people get stuff and they may take pictures themselves, and I understand some people don't want to share the stuff they get for having people reach out, hey, I'd love to buy it, all this kind of stuff. But no, I mean, if you're open to that, and like you said, can't get to an expo, share it out there, or maybe at some point we'll try to do some kind of virtual expo just to get some people that can't get to them in areas. Maybe we'll try something with that. Matt.
I, like Dan, have like fell into an area where I was actually really frustrated with the hobby for a while, and then some things kind of lined up, and finally having a lot more fun than I've had in a long time with the refocusing and shifting in the hobby. One of the key things I'm surprised to say is the ads on the new jerseys kind of turned me off from collecting them. I didn't think I would actually have that kind of opinion, and now I just collect the newer gamers based upon like games that I go to. But in the coming year, I'd love to see what the true, I guess you could say, comparison of what the wear looks like on the Fanatics jerseys. Maybe that could sway me back into developing a niche and collecting some of the newer stuff. One thing I would beg all collectors to do is when you get a message from another collector on Facebook, if you don't have time to read it, don't read it. But when you do read it, make sure you have time to respond to them. Or say, hey, I can't respond to you today. I'll respond to you in 5 minutes. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure other people are guilty of it. I really want to do a better job for myself, so I can not be so critical of other people not doing it to me. But it is really frustrating to reach out to somebody and then you see the message and it's left on red for months on end.
No, and that's a good thing to say. And again, we all work different schedules. Some are retired, but still we got things going on. But yeah, at least reply, say, hey, let me get you after work, or I got this stuff going on. Just even a quick reply, not be able to answer the question, but just something so the person's not like, what are these? Does this person not like me? Are they a jerk or whatever it is? But no, Matt, I think that's a definitely a good thing to try and work on for 2025. Is just be the good hobbyist, even if you can't answer it immediately. Because a lot of times I've posted things or I've had somebody looking for something that I have, but I don't have a picture handy. You'll say, hey, I'm at work right now, but once I get home tonight, I'll grab a picture of this and get back to you. So they at least know I've acknowledged it. And yeah, just don't leave people hanging. Sean.
So, I think what I always say to people is like what you collect what you like. I mean, we're all in this hobby for a variety of different reasons, and I think it's a very personal reason for everybody. But just make sure that you're doing something that you like doing. And so many folks hop into this hobby and think it's cool, and they buy some things and they buy some more things, and all of a sudden they've got 30 jerseys and they're like, well, I don't really even like these, I just thought they were kind of cool. So try to find a niche, try to concentrate on that. And then something, I mean, just take a look at my website, which is concentrates on Blackhawks jerseys, but try to help out other people in the hobby. So I've always tried to be very open and honest with people about what they have, questions they have, that type of thing. People get in touch with me over the website and on Facebook and all over the place constantly with all sorts of questions. I always try to make time for everybody and answer those questions. And some of the folks that have reached out to me over the years have turned out to be some of my best friends in the hobby. So don't be afraid to ask questions of people if they've been in the hobby for a while. It's cool, and I don't mind helping out somebody that's brand new. I don't mind helping out somebody that's been in the hobby for 30 years and they just came across a Hawks jersey. I mean, we're all in this together, and it's I have a blast doing this stuff. I've um talked to so many people, so many older collectors that do get burnt out, and it really gets to be a lot for them, and it's still fun for me. I love doing it, and I'm always happy to help people out. So
and just like anything, once it becomes work, it's not fun anymore.
yeah, totally.
And I've seen people leave the hobby because it's just too much, and I get that. I mean, we all get into things that it finally hits the point of like, you know what, I'm just done. But try to enjoy it. I mean, even if you need to step away a bit, that's great. We all understand it. I think probably most of us have at least done it for a bit or just kind of stopped looking at things for a little while, but don't get upset or frustrated if you're getting that. It does happen. Right before I get the opinions of John and Paul, I realized we needed a George and Ringo and we'd have the Beatles. So with you two over there. So John, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, I think I share similar sentiment with the rest of the guys. I think, my own personal journey coming into this year is like, I finally liberated myself of all my own stupid rules that I imposed on myself around it's got to be a Sharks jersey, it's got to be a Bruins jersey, or only enforcers, only all-star defensemen. I drove myself nuts with that for many years, and I think I'm at the point where if I love the jersey, the only questions I ask myself are, if this player were to leave this team tomorrow, would I be upset that I own this jersey? And as long as the answer is no, and I'm happy to have it, I've allowed myself to, create a rainbow of colors in my collection instead of like, just such a strict, constrained collection that I had before. So that was really breakthrough for me personally. But I really want people to start going to more shows. So
Yes.
one of the things that I talked to Paul about is like a lot of times I think that advertising it as a jersey show might actually be a little too restrictive for people who may not be familiar with it, and to like maybe broaden it to like hockey collectibles, hockey memorabilia, get people in the door, even if they're interested in cards or whatever it is, and have them discover jerseys through that means, rather than maybe turning people off by just saying, Jersey Expo, it's a high dollar collection, and a lot of people aren't ready to take that step necessarily. So we found just the other week, went to a toy show of all places and set up there. People are there obviously not for hockey memorabilia, but it was really surprising to see how many people stop by the booth to look around, ask questions about the jersey, and I think you guys actually sold
Right.
something, right?
We sold, yeah, we surprisingly did well what we sold.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there still to evangelize the hobby and get people interested in this great collectible that we have.
And Paul talked about that. It was cool to hear because that's definitely to use a terrible business term, out of the box thinking. But no, is your audience, you may discover a new audience, or that audience may discover you because they don't know that exists. They're there for one thing, but ooh, yeah, now I'm also a hockey fan and I didn't know I could get a hold of this stuff. So yeah, it's sometimes go to places you don't think you'll fit in, and you may be the best fit of anybody there. Paul.
And it was a lot of fun, the show. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was
it was just a great day, from getting up god awful early and getting there and finishing up with the Barracuda at night. It was a great time. So I'm going to start with your first part of the question about Fanatics and halfway through the year. I have not yet purchased a Fanatics jersey, and it's really been doing good for our budget and not uh, and focusing on older stuff, and stuff that we care, more care about. We care about more. So, I'm still open to see how the Fanatics jerseys all work out and all that. But everyone knows my initial position on them is I would so much like to see any other company take it over. but we'll deal with that later. So it's been brought up a couple times heading out to shows. February 1st here in San Jose, March 1st in Southern Cal, the April show for the Frozen Four. All be great shows. We'd love to get people to attend. We're putting together the table list for up here in San Jose. The sad side of all of this is Larry was going to have a show February 1st in Florida. And I'm not sure of the reasons, but that has now been canceled. It's not easy to put on an expo, and it takes a lot of help from a lot of people for every show. And it's, it's like the best way to me to like just meet people in the hobby, talk to them, see some great stuff, hopefully come home with a New Jersey or two. But we push expos all the time in the show and like to do that more in 2025. As for my collecting goals, as Jon pointed out here, he's kind of like gotten rid of his rules and just basically gets what wants him happy. Our collection has gotten too large between Monica and myself that having rules really does help us focus. I know Jon sees some of the crap I bring home, so it's he's laughing at that. So ideally in 2025, there are holes in our Michigan collection we would like to fill. Obviously, the last 3 or 4 years are really tough to obtain since they've only been backdoored or through players. So without buying Fanatics, that leaves more room, money, time for searching out other Michigan stuff and Michigan-related players. And the other thing is we are hoping not to grow the Zamboni collection. We're going to keep it at one. From
you say that now.
Oh yeah. I mean, if another offer like that comes along, it's like, Mitch, do you have more room? But that's the Zamboni is one of the highlights of 2024 for us. That it is really cool having that thing. And
I think that's a highlight for the whole hobby, just because nobody in the entire collecting community that I'm aware of has owned one. And it's, I know you guys said you photo matched it to games and other stuff. I mean, we've seen some weird pieces found as the laundry bag with all the laundry and including underwear in it. But I think that even tops that.
Yeah, no, we're pretty thrilled with that. So
you can't stop at one. You're a quitter, Paul. Come on. You need to expand the collection.
You got to be just like the NHL.
I want to see you lose your pants like Wade has.
They require 2 Zambonis on the ice, so you should have 2.
I love the logic. It's
I can come up with all kind. Wade, what you got to kind of wrap this up?
Well, I'm going to do the opposite of everyone. I'm going to try to be less helpful this year. I do want to get another Zamboni. I'm looking forward to getting my first Fanatics jerseys. I'm obviously very excited for the Winter Classic coming up for our Blues. Honestly, in 2025, I'm really, I guess my focus has changed a little bit. So just kind of what you guys said, I want to continue to focus on some of the stuff in the hobby that I'm enjoying. And, I've actually working on some player collections and some other things. And, I really liked the comment about, diversifying a little bit, rather than just having Blues jerseys. That's one thing. Like I really did dive pretty deep into some AHL affiliate stuff this last year. And, excited to see where the hobby goes in 2025 in the sense that I think there are some things that we all want to see balance out. But again, I think there's a lot of really good people and it's a lot of fun. So I'm fortunate to have some pretty great friends in this little world and, my fellow Jersey dorks and, just ready for another new year and hopefully we continue to grow this show and have a good time with it. And it continues to be helpful to the hobby.
You just want another Ryan O'Reilly.
I'm only looking for a couple.
No. And I mean, as we wrap up this year going into 25, we've covered a lot of ground on this podcast, hit the 2-year anniversary a handful of months ago. And it's fun is again, this particular episode is being recorded on Sunday night because we got the holidays and stuff coming up, and didn't want to screw up people's plans. And I appreciate 7 other people to be available on a Sunday night, but it's been so much fun to do and to pick out topics, even if it's a quick show or a long one, or find guests and do things, and the reception that we've gotten all this, and Paul's had people reach out to him. All of you guys have, and it shows the testament of what we're doing, and have being invited on Migrate to talk with them on stuff and about the podcast, and we're all in this together. And as more hobbyists are discovering this show and picking it up, and the reach we're getting, and the comments we're getting, and the interest we're getting, I have a bunch of people I need to follow up with to get booked for 25. I want to continue to grow this, and the one of the reasons we do it, besides it's just fun and rambling, like Justin believes I do a lot of times, is to help the hobby grow with information, with teaching, all of that stuff. Because once we quit doing that and it's not enjoyable, then it'll go away. But I appreciate all of you guys making an effort to be involved in some ways. Come on as guests, help us with content, whatever it is, and all the people out there that go like, subscribe, follow across wherever you get it. And again, yeah, some of the shows we may be rambling, or you don't like what we say, throw stuff back at us and let us know, hey, I just covered this, or I'd have brought up this.
Way too much blues talk on this podcast.
Gives me the blues.
Oh, see how many of us in the group here have teams that suck right now? Pretty much all of us. So maybe is it us that the all of our teams are pretty much in the basement? But no, Sean, we try to, again, because Wade and I we're not the experts, but we have a lot of information on the Blues. You're the Hawks guy. Paul and John are the Sharks, and Paul also the Detroit guy. Matt is something, so is Dan, and Justin knows
something, huh? I haven't been called that in a while.
But no, it's enjoyable. I'm excited to go into 2025 with this, and hope to get it growing even more, and seeing the numbers continue to go up on all the different places it's posted really gets me excited about it. So again, any final thoughts from anybody else before we get out of here? As Justin is tired and ready for a drink, I think. But gentlemen, again, thank you for coming on tonight and help us kind of wrapping up 2024 going into 2025. And I think we'll get a lot of feedback, especially on the where discussion and some of that, because I do agree it needs to be some kind of standardization. And maybe, hey, we come up with a standardization and then we push it on the NHL and say, here's what you guys should do. We'll dictate it. But
yeah, listen.
Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and help continue to support us in 2025. But again, thank you all. I hope everybody has had a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. We'll see you soon.